Hello and welcome, I'm Andrew, and in this video I'll show you how to use advanced field validation rules with JetFormBuilder. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. For this tutorial you will only need the free version of JetFormBuilder. Let's start by creating a form with no fields yet. On the right hand side of the dashboard you'll find a settings section labeled Validation. This section, however, refers to whole form validation rather than specific fields. I'll briefly walk you through it, but if you're interested, there's a more detailed video about form validation on our channel. The first three toggles in the validation settings enhance form security by adding extra protection layers. Next, there's the switcher between default and advanced validation types. The default type uses browser-level validation, such as email format checks and required field settings. The advanced type allows customization of error messages for various field types and typical validation rule violations such as leaving a required field incomplete or exceeding a file upload size limit. Here you can modify these alert messages and they will be displayed when the pre-built rules are applied to the fields. Create a text field using the text field block. In the block settings, you'll find a validation section specifically for managing validation rules and error messages for this block. There's the switcher with three validation types: inherit, default, and advanced. The inherit type, by default, applies all the validation rules you've modified in the form level validation settings. For example, if the field is marked as mandatory with a custom error message at the form level, the inherit type will enforce that rule and use the message, which cannot be changed. However, you can add extra rules by clicking the Add New button under the switcher. We'll begin creating such custom rules in just a moment. The default type ignores any advanced form level rules and only applies basic validation rules specific to the field type. For instance, text fields might include email or phone number format requirements, while numeric fields may have minimum and maximum values. Also, error messages for invalid inputs will appear only after users press the Submit button. Finally, the advanced validation type works similarly to the inherit type, meaning it keeps the advanced form level rules and error messages while also allowing you to add new rules for this specific field block. You can also modify the form's existing general error messages here. Please note that while the option to choose from these three validation types is available for most field types, custom rules can only be created for text and text area fields. This is logical, as other field types already have default rules that limit their inputs, such as minimum and maximum values for numeric inputs. Let's move on to the existing custom text validation rules, after which we'll create and test some rules for different use cases. Once you hit the Edit button, a pop-up will appear with a tab containing two input fields, one for entering the rule type and second for entering the error message. The second field is self-explanatory. This text will appear under the form field if the user enters a value that doesn't comply with the custom rules you've applied. The first step in creating a custom validation rule is choosing the type of condition that the input must meet from a drop-down menu. Equals ensures the input exactly matches a specified value. Must contain and must not contain characters requires the input to include or reject certain characters. Matches and does not match regular expressions validates or rejects the input against specific pattern. Server-side callback runs a specific function to validate the input against specific criteria on the server. Once we choose the rule type, two new input fields appear. The first field is for selecting where the value to compare against is located. For all rule types, except the last one, you can either select custom value or choose a form field. With the server-side callback option, you can write your own PHP function or use one of the pre-built options provided by Crocoblock. When it comes to custom input values, you also have dynamic options accessible through a coin stack icon to source the input from outside the form for all rule types except server-side callback, which must be directly connected here. The first option, Post, connects the field validation rule to data related to the post where the form appears. It can be useful for ensuring the form is relevant to the content and confirming the users read the information you want them to. The user source type allows you to validate field information based on the registered user profile. ensuring that only users with access to the profile can submit the form. The URL query variable lets you compare the value entered by users to a value included in the URL as a query parameter. I can think of several useful scenarios for using this feature. For instance, you could send a link to a form as part of a marketing campaign, embedding a unique query parameter tied to that campaign. Then you can require users to input that specific value into a field for validation. This way, you can easily track which campaigns are driving form submissions while adding an extra layer of validation. Finally, there's the option page option. It can be created using the Jet Engine plugin and is designed to store various types of information in meta fields that are not tied to specific posts. Since there are no direct, easy way to link validation rules with data outside of related posts, users, or forms, this option is a perfect solution for dynamically managing values that can be connected to multiple forms across different locations on your website. You could use it to store information about products in stock or current discount codes and update that information from one location. You can also see there's an Add Rule button allowing you to apply more than one rule to a field. Each rule can display a unique error message to guide users through form completion. Now let's create some fields with custom rules for typical field validation use cases. If we want users to provide their name using only letters and spaces, we should choose the matches regular expression rule type, select custom value, input the relevant standardized syntax code, which you can find online or generate yourself, and then provide an appropriate error message. Let's say we want a user whose data we partially know, for example their country of residence, to provide a valid phone number. In my setup, the logged-in users have their country of residence stored in a meta field associated with their profile. This meta field is a select field type, where the option label is the country name and the option value is the regex pattern for that country's phone number. Although I manually set this value for the user in this example, there are automated ways to update the user profile, including through the front end, as explained in one of our previous tutorials. With this setup, I choose the matches regular expression rule type and select custom value again. This time I use the dynamic data button for the value source, choose user, current user, user meta as the field, and input the relevant meta field key. Finally, I add the error message and the validation rule should be ready to go. The doesn't match regular expression rule type can be used to prohibit links in a field. For example, we can use a regex pattern that matches string containing either the @ symbol or www characters, which are often used to format text as links in text editors. I mentioned that an option page can be used for storing and updating valid discount codes, and I have a meta field on the option page containing a text code. Let's implement this for another validation rule by choosing the equals rule type, and as the source, choose the option page. The next input field will display available meta field names, including the one we need. Now let's create a typical validation rule for creating a strong password by inserting a regular expression that requires users to use at least 8 characters, include one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, one digit, and one special character. Additionally, JetFormBuilder now allows you to define the text field type as password, which hides characters behind the asterisk symbol. Following that, we'll create another field for password confirmation. This field will use the equals rule type, and for the source, we'll choose the previously created password field. Next, we'll create a field with more than one custom validation rule. For example, we can use the server-side callback rule and choose the pre-built isUserLoginUnique option. At the same time, we want to restrict the login format to a specific pattern, just like we did for the name input field. We'll apply 2 different error messages so users know exactly what they're doing wrong when creating their login. Finally, let's create a validation rule that targets the URL query variable as the source, which may be a bit confusing at first. For the equals rule type, I'll choose URL query variable as the source and then input the query variable name, which the user will need to match. Since we'll be checking the form as the JetFormBuilder post type, I'll enter post bottom dash type as the query variable name, knowing it will be present in the URL. Now let's test all the fields one by one to make sure everything works as expected. First, I'll try entering an invalid name with numbers or special characters. I should see the error message pop up reminding me that only letters and spaces are allowed. When I input a name in a valid format, the error message disappears and I'm good to go. Next, I'll test the phone number field. I'll start by entering a phone number that doesn't match the regex pattern for the logged in user's country, which is UK, which is +44 and 10 more digits. The error message should be visible until I put in the phone number that matches the user's country's format. Now I'll move on to the field that doesn't allow links and uses doesn't match regular expression rule type. When I enter text containing either @ or www. The error message should pop up, confirming the rule is working. In the same way, I could have specified other typical link parts, such as .com or HTTPS. I could also use this method to restrict a whole array of words I don't want to see in the form. I should mention that the sanitizing method available with the JetFormBuilder has similar functionality, but instead of disallowing the input, it erases flagged elements in the submitted form. There is a detailed tutorial on how to sanitize input values on our channel, so check it out as it's a related topic. For the discount code validation, the value should match the one stored on the option page. With the correct code, the form should go through smoothly without any errors. Now I'll test the strong password field by entering a weak password first and then typing in a password containing 8 characters, uppercase and lowercase letters, a digit and a special characters to adhere to the validation rule. For the password confirmation field, I'll see an error message once I start typing and until I manage to repeat the password from the previous field. Moving on to the login field, I'll test the unique login rule, which also requires using letters and spaces only. After entering the existing username subscriber, I see an error message saying the login is already taken, and if I use a unique name with a digit, I see a different error message. The new letters only input is accepted by the rules. Finally, I'll test the URL query variable validation. The rule for this field requires matching the URL query variable, which I set to be post type, with its query value. If you look at the form's URL, you'll see the mentioned variable key, and after the equal sign before the ampersand, you'll find its value. Users don't necessarily need to know the URL value themselves. Instead, website developers can input product categories or service types as URL query variable values and instruct users to input them to ensure they are submitting the correct information, much like signing explicit consent. As you can see, the advanced validation rules provided by JetFormBuilder are diverse and can be quite complex. The same results can often be achieved through various methods, offering flexibility for different situations. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below the video, and we'll work together to find the answers, as the possibilities for validation rules extend far beyond the short tutorial. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers!